you can trace things back to their origin. Now, there was a day when we didn't have the Christian Holy Bible. And I'm talking about we, because we are reincarnated souls, or reincarnated spirits. The soul is dependent on one lifetime. And your soul will be, going through these experiences. It's learning. And that's why your life has a purpose. That's to learn and realize more and more truth. So the soul is the accumulation of that. It's kind of like the result. You can look at it in terms of banking or finances. Finances show you your credit limit, or your deposits, your withdrawals. It shows you your current balance. So the soul is a lot like the balance. It gives you like the give and take. What's your status right now in this overall spiritual level of things. Now your spirit remembers, though. You have your eternal side. I was going to call it self, but it's not really a self. Self is each lifetime. So the spirit is the most omniscient side of you as an individual through time. And going all the way back, we have to realize that we pre-exist the things that there are. The Bible talks about being eternal, and that it's talking about things before, like in Genesis. It has the Creator, the Maker, these huge superhuman, supernatural forces that pre-existed even the writing of it. But they are invoking this eternal word in there. But what I'm talking about is not the source or the inspiration for the Holy Bible. What I'm talking about is the written form of it, which actually just started to get propagated in the multiple forms by the printing press, because the printing press was just a way to replicate something. The printing press revolutionized civilization because it was quicker and mechanized, as opposed to the scribes who were writing everything out. You had to copy everything by hand in the previous methods. The current method is still about printing and copying things by machine, physically. Remember that. That doesn't go without saying. We will have more advanced forms of that as soon as they're invented. But if you are going to stick with my premise here of comparing the religions, you go back to a time where the Bible didn't exist, and you think, well, what did they have? What religions existed then? These were the foundational religions that led into the Judaism, the Judaic faith, the Israelites of ancient time, ancient Israel. Also, you could talk about the religious culture around the Vedas, Vedic lore, which is otherwise known as Hinduism, otherwise known as those that follow the Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu. And they believe in also a lot of the things that I talk about. This is from a source which they consider to be way ancient. The modern theologians of India, the nation state, will tell you that, their books can be traced back tens of thousands of years. And we have to question that because it puts it at a time before the Great Flood of the days of Noah. So that would, that would predate, all these other things that you hear about in Genesis, which are not really to be measured by 1 year, 10 years, thousands of years. It's sort of like they had an exponentially decreasing scale, because when they talked about Adam and Eve and the original stories, the time scale wasn't like the same that they're using. It seems as if maybe the day of the Earth, the rotational period, possibly was different. But I don't want to debate the scale or the measurement. What I want to do is kind of simplify this, because it's such a huge leap to take to compare the scale and timing of Hinduism, Hindu history, to Christian history. And you want to trace things back to either a common origin, and this interesting source comes up when you look for that, and that's H.P. Blavatsky, who is the founder of Theosophy, which actually I consider to have gone into disrepair. It just collapsed on itself. But at the heyday, when they had created Theosophy, it had the premise of presenting us with the Secret Doctrine, which was an original base body of knowledge. The Secret Doctrine had to be translated from this ancient language, and they have words in there like, I remember Lanu. Lanu was something that they used in regards to initiations and neophytes, and the teacher and the student and the guru. Ooh, big. That's really, you put together quite a bit there. Yeah, you're really forming the structure of that. Now, as I'm trying to form the structure of, how could this supposed document that was written on tree leaves, large preserved tree leaves, it was recorded on that, like written, however they did it, and with this ancient, unknown glyphs of their alphabet, and like I said, this different language, and a language that supposedly was spoken all over the planet, the Earth, or the ancient Earth, the prehistoric Earth was, okay, we're trying to get all these timelines to be lined up so we can compare the religions and the source of either the Secret Doctrine. How did the Jews get their ideas? How did the Hindus get their ideas? You go from, and now we have another one that's been created. Very nice. The bottom of it fell off. That can happen. They don't stay together too well. It's not glued. It's just fastened together. See, these are metaphors. This block thing is just a metaphor of how they build religion upon each other. Now, what I came up with right now is thinking about the great turning points of our mythical history, in myth, told in myth. Myth is just our way today of saying, ancient stories from long ago that we don't know how to interpret, because we're not sure about their sensibilities. Their sense. My hair has a life of its own. So the Bible is kind of like a compressed, or I'm talking about the early part of the Bible. The first 5 books, and especially Genesis, is kind of a collation. It's collated. It's the summary is really what. And also Blavatsky was talking about this in the Secret Doctrine, which, even if I don't agree with all the details and the, bizarre, strange stuff that Blavatsky brings up, I totally agree, and I use in my own work the same premise, the principles that the earliest parts of Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, the Judaic, ancient Israelites, in the Aramaic, or you're talking about, this must be also connected with the Sumerians, the Babylonians, which were after the Sumerians, the Assyrians, the Hittites, and of course we got to talk about the Egyptians. And we're just going to say that all this stuff was from a very ancient period, that either it's took formation right after the Great Flood, the flooding period, or it took part after the Ice Age melted, which could be the same thing. Because if you think about this 11,500 years ago, which is estimated also by modern scientists, modern science says that, this period made everything change, because any of the civilizations, which were pretty much all of them, had major centers at the coast, and when the sea level rose, everything was flooded. They couldn't save. They could save a little bit and run with it to higher ground, but everything got submerged and then was covered in sediment, and even to this day we haven't explored that. There's a lot off the coast of India, off the coast of Egypt, off the coast of Europe, going into the Atlantic, off the coast of Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia. There's so many places, and the water was changing the face of the earth. The coastlines changed, civilization changed. Is the Ice Age tied in with the flood? It pretty much has to be. But we can also say that if the tales of the flood are right, it says that the rain came from the sky, as we understand rain, precipitation, and it just kept raining and raining and raining. Well, how could it do that unless there was a great heating? That means that if the ice started to melt, and it could be simultaneous with other factors of heating or melting. If the ice melts and the water runs across the land, then that water has to somehow end up in the air. It has to go through vaporization. It has to evaporate. So when that happens, you get more clouds, you get more water content in the air. All right, so how does that happen? How did it happen? So it must have been colder before, if we just look at it as far as temperature, but not radiation-wise. What were the civilizations like before that? So you have to tie all this in with the idea of Atlantis. What does Atlantis mean? And if the Egyptians and the Greeks had to follow after that and receive what they would accept from the Atlantean, but they would fight the rest of it. You do have these tales now that are being translated and put this into the mix of prehistory, that they were fighting the Atlanteans, and that's how they cut their teeth. That's how they developed, as they military and war is known as the greatest driving factor, the evolving, developing factor